the National Training Workshop Series already have seen some of the information here on our slide about some housekeeping and kind of how our flow will be today. As I mentioned, I'm Deshanna York. I'm honored to be here today, and I am with the Alaska AgrAbility project. You are in the Zoom room for low-tech assistive technology at home and abroad. So had a little bit of a break there, so hopefully you're in the right place and had a moment to settle in. As always, please mute your microphone and rename your screen name with your first and last name, if you would, to help us navigate for our time together today. If you need the closed captioning, you can click on the closed caption button on the bottom. And then also, if you have questions, go ahead and type those into the chat box. A lot of you must be familiar with that by now, but there's a little notation, likely if you're on a computer, at the bottom of your Zoom screen that has a chat little button there. If you click that, a box will pop up and you can type in your questions there. We will be recording this session and it'll be located on the National AgrAbility website for you to review or share with others or review later. And all the series of the AgrAbility National Training Workshop Series sessions are also there as well. At the end of the session, we'll be posting in the chat room an evaluation, and we'd like to get your feedback on that as well so that we can continue to enhance these deliveries. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing and we will be sharing the presentation that's up and coming. With that, I'm going to do a quick introduction. As I mentioned, I'm honored to be here today for this presentation. We have two amazing speakers today to share their insights with us. The first is Ned Stoller, who started out his agricultural engineering career serving farmers with disabilities for Purdue University in 1998. He later moved to Lowell, Michigan to be a dairy farmer and started a vegetable market farm known as Heidi's Farm Stand. Ned re-entered the rehabilitation field full-time in 2010 as the agricultural engineer for Michigan AgrAbility. He has 19 years of experience helping farm workers with medical impairments remain productive while considering what tasks are safe and appropriate. We also are honored today to have Peter Goharry, and he's a voluntary director with Embrace Farm, which was set up in 2013 and is a nonprofit organization in Ireland. Embrace Farm helps farmers and farm families after an accident or fatality on the farm. In October 2009, he had a life-changing workplace accident that resulted in the loss of a leg, severe damage to the other, and numerous other injuries. His road to recovery inspired him to devote his career to advise other workers in high-risk environments on the dangers and realities of the lack of health and safety. Today, he delivers behavioral-based safety talks and lectures in different forms around Ireland, telling his story and explaining his motto, which is, it's better to lose a minute in life than lose your life in a minute. So with that, I will pass it on to our presenters. Welcome.
Thank you, Deshanna. Appreciate that. You're going to have to enable me to share my screen. You had done it before my internet dropped, and so now you're going to have to do it again.
Oh, let me see here.
There it goes. Okay.
Awesome.
So thank you for having me with you again today. I'm looking forward to talking with you about assistive technology and what I've learned talking with Peter Goharry from Ireland. He and I had a good conversation together about a month ago about farming there and the assistive technology needs. And so I'm going to base some of my assistive technology on that conversation that I had with him. So whether you're in Ireland or the United States or Canada or anywhere in the world, farmers that have disabling injuries or illnesses need tool adaptations, different tools in their toolbox to be able to continue being productive in whatever their situations are. And we are blessed in many ways in the United States and Ireland and around the world with high-tech assistive technology that can do just about anything for us for a price. It's complex, has specialized components, requires some significant training at times to be able to use it safely and effectively, and it costs a lot to purchase it, which can be a real barrier. So the low-tech assistive technology is in contrast to that. It has readily available parts, simple to use. Quite often it's inexpensive, comparable to the higher tech alternatives, and it's practical for farm tasks. This is also marvelously helpful. I know Ed Bell there in Indiana talks about the grocery sack, the plastic grocery sack that he can sit on and helps him transfer into his van, and how helpful that is. And so it just really depends on the scenario and the situation, whether high tech or low tech is going to be the best solutions for us when we are thinking about assistive technology on the farm. But I particularly appreciate low tech assistive technology when it comes to a time where maybe vocational rehabilitation or other funding sources are not available, and a farmer needs to accommodate somehow, and to have the option to build your own, or have a neighbor down the road help you or build it for you, or just to broaden the access to the assistive technology with low-tech options. So these are just very simple things, whether it's the pipe foam insulation, a long-handled modified tool that straps onto your belt, or raised beds. These are just some real quick, simple examples of low tech. And Peter over in Ireland has developed some of his own. And maybe Peter, if you would just tell us a little bit about the Embrace Farm there, and then I have your slides right after this about the feed pusher. So
okay. I suppose, look, at Embrace Farm was set up by Brian and Norma Rohan after the death of Brian's father. Brian's father was killed in a farm accident, suffered injuries from a farm accident, died 2 days, 3 days later in hospital from it. So then they've seen that there was nothing here in Ireland for help for farmers after a fatality on the farm. And then the following year, Brian asked me to get involved to help farmers that were disabled from injuries on the farm. So that's when we set up. So the first year they set up with a service. I think you've seen it there. We're an ecumenical service. And it was attended by over 600 people here in Ireland. And it highlighted the importance, you know, doing safety around the farm, and also that the need for some assistance for people on farm. So we brought on board psychotherapists, you know, people to help us to deal with different accidents or deal with bereavements on the farm. So that's where Embrace came from and what it started with. And I suppose here is what I'm talking about is the feed pusher this evening. Because of my accident, I didn't really have the balance on my legs. You can hit on there to the next one, you'll see. In Ireland, the next slide is like all our feed is put into a pit and we cut it in blocks using this type of a grab. And it's usually put in front of a barrier. You'll see in the cattle shed in a few minutes. But what happens is when you're forking it in, if you go on to the next one there, you'll see, please, the next slide. Yeah, you see here, what happens is, no, go back one. Yeah, there, you see like where the cattle, when they put their head through the barrier, they normally leave a space between the feed and the barrier, and then you have to come along and fork it back into the cattle. So what I decided to come up with, and you'll see in the next slide, was a basic, simple push. What it would do was just push the cattle in. So if I was feeding both sides in the shed in a passageway, this will divide the fodder that's there in the shed and push it into both sides. It was simple to make, 8-inch channel iron and a 4x10 piece of timber bolted on top of it. The reason I used the metal on the bottom, it was more sturdier, and it would last a long time being pushed around. Plus, if you go on there to the next one, you'll see it's easy to attach. There's the type of grab. I just have to drive the grab into it. We can go hit the next one, Ned, please. And you see where the prongs from the grab actually fit into it. Now I'm able to lift it up. There's no need to get down off the loader or to get pins and put them in place or clips to hold it in. And then I can proceed into the shed, which you'll see in the next slide. Basically, it just pushes in the silage in tight to the barrier, and I don't have to fork anything in. Okay. So, and that will push it to both sides. It's basically the width of the machine at the back is just basically a V. And you can see where the prongs come up again, the channel iron there just to hold it, stop it from going in too far. So, all right, something easy.
Yeah. And Deshauna, are you watching the chat? If there's questions people have right through the middle of this, we can answer questions as we go.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Watching that.
So this is one of the scenarios that Peter and I talked about, was switching tires off of equipment on the farm. And here in the United States, we tend to have a piece of equipment for each different operation quite frequently. But Peter, you were telling me there in Ireland, you have to swap wheels quite a bit from one project to the next.
Yeah, basically here in Ireland, we'd have one tractor maybe that would do, would fit a load of implements, would be fitted onto the back of it. So you take it like, if you're doing cultivation work or for tillage work, we'd have a tractor that would have wide tires on it for doing all the preparation of the ground. And then come time to putting out, I'd say, fertilizer on the crop or spraying the crop, then we go back to the narrower tires. So the problem we're having was that to move the tires with ease, and a lot of tires were falling over, you know, on people. So these tire dollies, they were costing quite a bit. But lucky enough, we got the government to actually fund some of the cost in the last 2-3 years. They were decided they would give a grant towards the purchase of this for some of the farmers, you know?
So this is the tire dolly. With it will let you rotate it when you're putting it on and line the holes up easily. The cost of it is $1,400. And so I looked up some other options that are available here in the United States to address the same situation. And this one here is a dual changer from Wessendorf Equipment, and it clamps onto a loader bucket and it lifts the wheel and it rotates. You can spin the wheel on it. Now, if this is probably not a perfect replacement of this device, but for $800 less, you might be able to make it work, and maybe even build something similar, just this concept of having a boom of some sort coming off of your loader bucket with a rolling wheel on the end of it.
Yeah.
So just another concept in wheel management. And then this is a set of tongs, gripping tongs hanging from a chain from a loader bucket. Not a real good picture of it here, but once again, something that could be made out of a standard angle iron or square tubing and come together and grip on a wheel for $425. So these are items that are available here in the United States. And I don't know if you have anything like this in Ireland to choose from. Have you seen anything like this, Peter?
No, I haven't. The problem with those is our health and safety authority would probably wouldn't be too happy with us using them here in Ireland. If you go back to the wheel changer there from the one previous, yeah, you see what the good thing about this is it has held the tire with the bar on the top of it to stop the tire from falling forward. And
Yeah,
the other thing is, it's one person, is able to do it. When you're
yeah,
trying to rotate the tire around on the rim to locate the studs, this works for it fairly easy. I know that
yes,
your tire lifter, maybe if there was another bar installed on the bucket one,
yeah.
maybe it could help just to go over the tire to stop it falling over.
Sure. The tire holder and having something like it that would reach up and over on this one
Yeah,
that
some kind of a clamp
could,
that would just flick over maybe on it,
yeah, and improve the safety of it.
improve the safety of it.
That is a good discussion for us to have about low tech devices, and that low safety is not wise to think of. Okay, if we want to have something cost less or something that we can build, to consider the safety of it so that we're not causing a secondary injury because we're just putting something together in our own shop.
Trying to cut corners.
Yeah,
We do have a couple of questions, if you don't mind.
sure.
One that's pertinent right now on this is, do you have to have two tractors to use the dual tire changer?
You have to have the tractor to lift the wheel, putting it onto the other tractor.
So the answer is yes.
Well, you have the tractor that's getting the wheel put onto it,
Right.
but otherwise you would just need one, like maybe a skid loader to pick up the other wheel.
The other
Backhoe,
question,
yeah.
oh, sorry.
Sorry,
The
go
other
ahead.
The other question is just a little bit more in depth, more like philosophical. Do you have advice for people to help them back away from complicated technology in favor of a simpler functional approach? We tend to get caught up and forget the simple solution. So that's a little bit deeper question, maybe as we move along.
Yeah, and that's part of our challenge, I think, living in a time when you can see just about anything on the internet. Like, wow, that's a really amazing wheelchair that's made somewhere on the other side of the world, and I want one. And that maybe we don't think of the simpler solutions because we've seen kind of the sky's the limit type ideas. And it's probably a matter of training our minds and remembering that simpler is easier to fix if it breaks, and to get parts for and to understand how it operates. But there are limitations to simple also. And so we don't want to look away from a higher tech solution if it's the best thing, and if we can find the funding for it. Here we have some low tech controls for a tractor cab. And this person in, I believe he's from South Dakota. This is from the toolbox on the AgrAbility website. Used some clamps and pieces of common steel and fastened lever accommodations onto his gear shift lever and hydraulic controls on his tractor. This same farmer also has this on another tractor, and it is a joystick and toggle controlled for his hydraulics and 3-point arms. So very high tech on the same farm, different applications, different, I guess it was appropriate on different tractors for the different situations. So I wanted to, I guess this maybe can help address that same question, that just because low tech is a good solution in one tractor doesn't mean that it's the best solution in all of them. And we just need to consider all the options that are available.
If I might come in there, Nate, I think that actually it'd be a good idea for somebody would say that would be missing maybe a right arm, that they could switch it easily enough to the left-hand position.
Yes,
this high-tech idea, whereas the low-tech, they wouldn't be as easily done, you know?
to have someone reach that with their left arm.
Yeah, that's on your right-hand side, take it.
Correct.
Or, that's just my opinion of it now, thinking of the other side. I think to make it easier for people who would be missing a right arm or who have poor movement on the right arm, they could move that maybe to the left-hand side, just clip it into the armrest or whichever on the left-hand side, and they'd be able to still have the same function.
Yes. Here's some more low-tech hand control levers on a John Deere tractor to operate the brakes. Peter, we had talked about how your Department of Agriculture was, you had some conversations with them about providing hand control levers for farm equipment.
Yeah, we'd say it's the first time in the history of Ireland that we got a minister, person in government who's in charge of farm safety. So last September, I met with them, myself and another friend of mine, Vincent Nally, and we went up and we spoke to him, sat down with the Minister Martin Hayden, and it was one of the things that I wanted was that farmers would be granted to do adaptations to their farm vehicles. Like, this is a brilliant idea for a person that had a limited movement of their the legs, that they'd be able to use the hand controls for brakes maybe, and the same for the clutch,
And here with this accommodation, there's a flat plate of steel welded onto the top of the brake pedal, and then the long lever is bolted onto the piece that they added. So these levers can be taken on and off by removing these two bolts. This is another load. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think it goes back a slide or two when you were having the conversation about moving the lever to the left. When moving when discussing that, when moving it to the left, does that void the warranty of the implement from the dealership then? That was a question.
This is already a specific accommodation for this tractor. It's not something that existed.
I think that might reference the one slide back from here when y'all were talking about the possible movement of this. Maybe it was in reference to that.
I have found that implement dealerships and manufacturers are pretty nervous about being involved with any modifications to their equipment, and they're pretty quick to not want to warranty something if it's been modified. And that can be for valid reasons. I think the folks at Life Essentials that build the man lifts would also comment on this, that when someone modifies one of their man lifts and then there's some accident or something breaks, they don't want to be held accountable for modifications someone else has made to their equipment. But this particular device is an add-on to a tractor, and so whether it's added on to the right hand side or the left hand side would probably not change the warranty situation any more than having it in the first place.
So you would recommend checking into all of that before changing anything?
It's going to be the reality of modifying equipment, and something that plays into the whole decision-making process is the importance of being able to keep working and functioning as well as possible, being productive on the farm is going to have some impact that you might not have the warranty on that piece of equipment like you did before. But the benefit is it enables you to keep working. My friend Doug Verhoeven here in Michigan says when you have a disability and you're trying to do your farm work, everything takes twice as long and costs twice as much. And probably the warranty situation is part of that reality, that if you're going to modify a piece of equipment, the warranty is going to be affected. But
Yeah,
if you don't,
plus,
yeah,
sorry, Ned. Plus, I have a friend here in Ireland who is missing the right arm from a farm accident. And what he found was every time he had to reach over with his left hand to control the equipment, by the end of the day, he was exhausted. But by having the equipment, like changed over to his left hand side like that, he wasn't as tired in the evening, he had a lot more energy. So I would say it's more safer, I'd say, to have that switched for the likes of a person like that, rather than, I know warranty and a lot of the machinery here would be going in for adapting mainly older equipment. And so the warranty is over at that stage anyway. All right.
this is another example of a low-tech accommodation from the toolbox where a splint was made for someone who couldn't squeeze hand lever in a skid steer loader. And so there's a pipe held in place by a splint and it could slide over the handle and operate. Very low tech, low cost, very effective. I don't know what a high-tech solution to this would be. Probably getting a different skid steer loader that was already a different type of controls. This is just low-tech assistance for lifting and carrying things around the farm when you have a challenge walking. I thought of this one day when I was in the grocery store and I saw someone pushing their shopping cart through the store, leaning on it, using it kind of like a walker. And I thought, how could we duplicate that on the farm? And so we got this greenhouse cart with large wheels, and we adjust the height of the handle for the user to be able to kind of use it for stability and loading it up and carrying things. This is helpful inside of a building where you can't get a John Deere Gator or other utility vehicle driving in and out of a building. Equipment access, getting up to the height of a cab. This is an example. This was built as a ramp to help someone get onto a horse, but you could park your tractor beside this and you just have to come back to the same spot to get on and off. The same concept of just using a ramp here on this side-by-side utility vehicle to go up onto it with the wheelchair itself. And I don't know if anybody else here remembers the old green book that was before the toolbox was printed. When I started at Purdue in 1998, there was a green book called Modified Equipment for Farm Workers with Disabilities. It was quite a long name on the title, but this is a picture from there. The ramp is steeper than it should be probably on this example, but the concept is the same. It's pretty low tech, simple, not a lot to break on it. If you can park your tractor beside it and be able to get in and out from the same location. So Peter, you have any comments or thoughts about this? You ever seen such a thing in Ireland?
Not this type of ramp, but what I know was talking to one person who was in a wheelchair, and what he did was he made a concrete ramp for his tractor and his digger. But just like you said, when he was finished in the evening, he had to, pull back into the ramp to be able to get off the tractor and, back into the wheelchair. So a good idea. You could move that probably around easier. Yeah.
Just another concept of the same thing. If you've got a hill, I even had a client that just parked the tractor beside the back deck, come out of the house and get on the tractor.
I'm laughing at it because probably about 6 months after about 6 months after my accident, I wanted to get into the tractor. So I got my brother to dig an actual hole, bury the back wheels of the tractor down, and I was able to roll off a concrete edge to get into the tractor. And,
Okay.
and I guess everyone thought that I was Lulu or nuts, you know, because what do you want going doing that for? But, you know, it was something to get the head right, to be able to say, hey, I could do it. I could go out, I could drive the tractor again, you know, even though I had one leg, and I was able to get around, you know. So there is a lot of, I suppose, merits for it, you know, and why we should do it and that, you know.
Deshauna, did you have something to say?
No, I was just clapping because I thought that was a great
Oh,
example.
okay. Yeah, we could talk about low-tech assistive technology as digging a hole.
Simple.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, so.
The next part of this presentation I wanted to discuss was hydraulic cylinder man lift. I had a farmer that wanted to get up on his tractor, and something he could make himself. And so we had a lot of discussions and thinking about the concepts of what are farmers accustomed to fixing? What materials are they accustomed to working with? You remember low-tech assistive technology is made with common, readily available materials and systems and pieces and parts that the farmers are already used to working with. So there's not a lot of training needed on it. And so we took a picture of his tractor and used Microsoft Paint, not a real high-tech drafting program, but you can make lines with different colors, and you can cut and paste and move things around. And so we just kind of played with that until we came up with this idea of building a tube that slides inside of a tube and a hydraulic cylinder to pull it up and down. And this is what we ended up with building it. It's a 3-inch square steel tubing on the outside with a 2.5-inch square tube that slides up inside of it, and cut a slot out of the one side. The hydraulic cylinder uses 1/2-inch hoses that everybody has on their farms already. And we attached this to the tractor. We bolted it on to the place where the tractor steps had been. So we used those same holes in the frame to attach this lift. It ended up being about $1,000 for the materials. The biggest cost was buying the 12-volt hydraulic pump so that this could operate when the tractor was turned off. And then about 20 hours in the shop, and I would say half of that was figuring out how to attach it to the tractor, because building the lift itself was pretty straightforward. Once we learned from that first one, and the farmer really liked it as he used it, we duplicated the concept for a larger tractor. Used the same size 3-inch square tubing with 3/16 wall thickness, so that a 2.5 square tube would slide right in and out of it without too much flopping around. And we just got a longer hydraulic cylinder, and we made the vertical mast part longer. And once again, it was very successful. You can see this toolbox right here. Can you see my cursor when my screen's shared? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
This is where the 12-volt hydraulic system is positioned, right in here. And that's kind of a challenge with each of these different applications, is where to put that. But it's operated by the tractor battery. And then we went the next step and actually used it on a combine. You can buy a 6-foot-long hydraulic cylinder. And so this lift will go up and down 72 inches. And I went ahead and designed a grab bar system that could fold up and down right here, so that when the farmer gets on, or he can flip up the handrails and get onto the platform and then flip it down behind him. And here's the 12-volt hydraulic system here. And we've just had good success with this fairly simple concept, and the farmers are pleased with it.
So where's the best place to get cylinders like that?
I get them through the Surplus Center or Magister Hydraulics or Bailey Hydraulics. They're all online vendors of hydraulic components. And these are the drawings that I have. This was from the combine. You can see the sloped tube that slides inside of the other. So my question here is this low tech? What do you think, Peter? Is this a low tech man lift solution?
Yeah, I think so. You know, like, look, it's brilliant as far as I'm concerned. You know, what I consider the high tech is where you have a dedicated piece of equipment doing the lifting, we'd say like the likes of the pickup truck, lifting a person straight up into it with an arm, hydraulic arm, you know? So like, that's not that expensive to put on, in fairness.
So how would you access the designs to share with a farmer? In this case, this is something you designed, correct?
Yeah. I would share it with you. As a matter of fact, there was a farm down in Kentucky that emailed me, and I sent him the drawings, and he built it and got his dad up in the tractor, and it was on Good Morning America or something like that, and got shared 6 million times around Facebook. Something.
It went viral, as they say.
Yeah, it went viral before COVID made viral not popular.
Yeah, right. I know we have to rethink the terms, right?
Yeah.
Someone else, how are safety issues addressed in this regard?
Well, the concept of having a tube sliding up and down inside of another tube is nothing new. I think probably 30 or 40 years ago, people were doing that, and they were using a cable winch to pull the slide up and down. And that was a safety concern with that cable winch. And so that's why I wanted to use something that farmers were also accustomed to working with, but was safe. Because if there's a hydraulic failure, the fluid is going to have to come out of the cylinder, and it's going to go down slow. It's not going to be a crash like a cable breaking. And part of the safety is, I would say a primary part of the safety is the evaluation with the farmer and his abilities for balance and stepping up and down, and just making sure that there's good grab bars. I did actually have one of my clients who died as a result of falling off of a man lift. It wasn't one that I built. It was actually a commercially available one, but she made a bad decision, and she didn't die immediately, but it was kind of the beginning of her decline health-wise. And so the safety is important for us as we work directly with the clients and understand their needs, and training and making sure that they're using it safely.
Yeah.
So
there's a couple other quick questions that talk about it. We're gonna be about 15 minutes out here in just a moment. So the question was, do you build these and help install, or is that the responsibility of the farmer? And then someone else asked, do you find local contractors to do the fabrication, or is it the AgrAbility team? Is it you? Is it local contractors?
It's been mostly local contractors. The first one or two, when we were working out all the kinks, and I was working pretty closely with them, just to make sure that it's the design process of building it and seeing how it works, and then needing to adapt and make things better. But it's been kind of a a field proven concept here at this point that I feel pretty comfortable with the safety of the design and the structure. The next part of safety is the operator and making sure they understand how to use it safely. The folding grab bar, I really like that it can come down right behind this fellow and he's stable on really on all sides of his equipment.
And then I think maybe for both of you, I mean, with things like this where you're doing your own design, do you have some type of release that you're using for these types of designs you're doing yourself to release from liability? What's your thoughts on that?
I have errors and omissions insurance. And I guess it's, for me, important to help people keep working. And there's always going to be a risk in that if somebody would come back against me with that. I guess that's a whole nother session that we've learned from before, is just the legal protections for us. My situation here in Michigan, I'm an independent contractor, so it might be different than in other states where someone's employed directly by the university or the nonprofit, as far as what the limitations would be for them to be able to do this kind of work. Do you have experience with this in Ireland, Peter?
Yeah, basically what I'd be doing is anything I'd make is for myself. And if other people copied the design, fair play to them, I don't mind. But if anything happens, it's happening on their own bat then. They didn't, look, they just took my copy and that was it. What we do recommend with through Embrace is that people go to a recommended a manufacturer of different adaptions, or an adaption company that would specialize, that would have certification for what the adaption they're using, you know, and that's what we use here in Ireland. So hopefully that answers the question. But like what I find with a lot of it here is the sense of the farmer or the person being able to get back out to know that they were able to do something rather than to be stuck inside all day just looking out, you know. So for me, that benefit outweighs anything else, you know. And normally if a farmer is out doing the work and something happens, he's going to repair it himself. He's not really going to be looking at, well, who do I sue or who do I go after? Because, you know, he'll try to make improvements to it himself, is what I find in a lot of cases. All right.
Yeah. Oh, this is the major part of the presentation is done. Here's just a recap and a couple more pictures to think about. That the low-tech devices are assistive technology, is not just equipment. It can be methods, ways of doing things. But this is a simple solution that I have found. The concept of fence line feeding and being able to get feed to your livestock without going into the pen with them. I don't know how many times that I've talked with my clients about, could you move the feeder over by the fence so that you can throw the hay in without going in with the animals? And how much did that cost? How much training did that take? Just very simple and straightforward. It's a mindset. Let's get the feed to the animals from the safe side of the fence. And you saw that in Peter's pictures of his feed pusher. He was doing all the feeding from the alleyway between the pens and not going in with the animals. And maybe is that how you always do it in Ireland?
Not always, you know, like there is the round feeder, basically where you throw a bale into it and the metal bars go around it and the cattle come into it. But what I found about that is if the cattle are nearby, they're inclined to push or to bully their way into it. So I prefer to have them separated. For 5 months of the winter, because our winters are so wet here, we normally have the cattle in for the 5 months anyway, to allow the grass to recover, and then during the summer. I suppose, look, the other thing on that I will say is, if we were feeding cattle outside or feeding animals outside, is the meal trough. What I found with it was the animals coming up to me, because I didn't have proper balance. You know, bringing a bag of meal out was a chore. So what I was doing was going out with the gator and bringing out 2 5-gallon drums. It was easier just to throw it out, but park the gator near it, and then you were able to move away again, you know. You had a kind of comfort zone. But if they pushed me over, I'd fall, and it was the leg that fell in the, you know, I left the leg behind me rather than leaving a boot or something, you know. So so what do? You know, you learn, I suppose. A lot of the easy way is after a while, you know.
Yeah. And one of my other favorites is just getting the rolling shop ladders like this instead of using a step ladder. And you can see on this one here, we just put some 8-inch pneumatic wheels on it so that it could roll around outside, and makes it very much more convenient and stable and more safe for climbing up and doing tasks than trying to use a step ladder. So, do you have these in Ireland?
What they're recommended now on a lot of the job sites in Ireland is to use ladder, something like that, as opposed to the A-frame ladder, podium ladder it's called, where once you get to the top of it, you know, the bar will come around you, that you're pinned in up there, that there's less likelihood of you falling backwards. But when I'm just looking, what I did here in Ireland when I was in the construction trade was we had a man basket that fitted on the front of a teleporter. So it was basically like a sheet of steel on the floor, 8 foot by 4 foot, and 4 foot high railings around it. So what you had was an operator that lifted you up instead of using a ladder. And what I find is, for simple jobs around the farm, like we'd say cleaning the gutters out, all right, you have to have 2 people, you know, at it, one driving the piece of equipment, and they'll bring you around, you know, you're giving them directions. It's a lot safer than the ladder going around, you know. Plus I'm able to stand up inside in it. So.
And you have to trust your operator.
Yeah, yeah, that they don't leave you up there in the sky. You know?
Are there brakes on that ladder?
On this ladder here, when you stand on it, there's springs on the wheels so that it presses the frame of the ladder down onto the ground when it has weight on it.
Oh yeah, I see that now, where there's the little legs. Yeah.
But the little wheels, when you're using it outside, don't do much.
Mainly inside.
As it pertains to this slide where you have kind of the definition of low tech, a question was asked, when it comes to lower high tech, is the level of education or experience needed to produce the device a factor in determining if it's lower high tech? I mean, you have some elements here about simple and expensive practical, but what about education expertise of those who are producing those? Like the education experience tied in, is that a factor when determining if it's low or high tech?
I suppose if it's readily available parts and simple to use with minimal training, if the person has a lot of experience in electronics, there's probably things that are for them low tech. They're used to doing programming and putting electrical components together. And if it's something readily available,
so it's not necessarily defined by if an engineer designs it or not. It's if someone has the experience with the components, like a farmer could make some of those things.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah. I suppose in that sense, whether something's low tech or high tech might depend on the person.
Okay. So we have about 5 more minutes.
Okay, just real quick there, a lot of our implements here are all on the lift arms of the back of the tractors, you know, as
This-
opposed to drawbar pull. There is a company here called the Third Arm that if anyone wants to look into it, and basically it was a hydraulic cylinder that telescopic in and out the lift arms from side to side. So when you were putting on the equipment, if there were different widths on them, basically you didn't have to get down and to pull the lift arm out to hitch it on, that you could do it all from the tractor seat. So if anyone wanted to look at it, it's readily available there, called the Third Arm.
It's for a for a 3-point hitch, Peter.
3-point hitch, yeah, sorry. You know, the lift arms. You can
Yeah.
even, you know, how some of them have the balls on it or some of them have the crooks on it. And, you know, like I find with the heavier piece of equipment, it's harder to move it around. Whereas this piece of equipment, I forget the exact price of it, which, you know, makes it very easy for people to be able to do it. I'll send it on to you, Nate. I see there's someone there looking for, if I could share the screen, can I share the screen? I have a piece of, it'll be here on mine. Could I do that? Share my screen?
Yeah. Try it.
See. Yeah. Hold on now. Just so. Can you see? Hold on now.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, Dusty, you could use something like that, couldn't you?
The all right?
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I will find out. I'll send on more information to you on it, you know. You see, we've one tractor for multiple implements, whereas you've multiple tractors, maybe the one job over in America. But like, I think it's a brilliant idea. You know, something simple. I don't think it's that expensive, but I'll find out more on it and I'll share it, and you can share it with whoever you want. Is that all right, Ned?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
So, and plus I think there's a pin on it that you can actually adjust it to the different size tractors as well, you know? So for big and small pieces of equipment. So.
Great. Was there any last questions? Oh, there's some questions. Folks are asking to send the information. So that would be great. Question of who makes it. Was that something that you designed?
No, I didn't design it. It was made by a farmer, Philip Dixon here in Ireland, who is a cattle and sheep farmer here in Ireland. And he just seen the idea and he asked me, would I look at what I thought of it, kind of give him feedback on it. So we did, and, you know, like, and I compliment him on what he did, you know. So it's brilliant for people that need assistance in trying to hitch up, you know, the pieces of equipment. All right.
Great. So I'm just going to share a slide real quick as well. Tess put in the chat box an evaluation. So we'd like to get your feedback. It's important so that we can continue to improve on sessions like this and also get feedback on other sessions that you'd like to see in the future. And as mentioned, you can access the recorded slides and also archived video, which will be posted up in short order of today at the website link that's on the screen right now, or going to the National AgrAbility website and then clicking on the National Training Workshop link. Our next session next week is Farmer Mental Health Trends, Risk Factors and Stress Reduction Technique, Mindful Living with Suzanne Winden and Josie Rodolfi, I think, at 1 o'clock Eastern Time. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and put those in the chat and last minute questions, and or contact Tess at the address there at goodwillfingerlakes.org. And let's let's see, I think we have a couple other items in the chat. Let's see. Great presentation. Thank you very much. The link is there. Please, please do take just a moment or two to give us feedback on the session today. And thank you for joining us. Have a great rest of the week.